Welcome to the Heroes of the Storm What's Next panel.
Hola a todos, aquí Mailman Grumpy con otro vídeo de la Blizzcon 2017. En este caso, como podéis ver, las novedades sobre Heroes of the Storm, el Dota,
Hello, Blizzcon.
el LOL
It's awesome to be
de
back here with you
Blizzard.
guys. My name is Alan Dabiri. I am the game director for Heroes of the Storm.
Hello.
I am joined up here by Travis McGathy.
Hi, everyone.
This actually works. There we go. I'm joined up here by Travis McGathy, lead game designer, and Matthew Cooper, lead live designer. So thank you for joining us for the What's Next panel for Heroes of the Storm. In this panel, we're going to dive into some really cool stuff coming to the game post-BlizzCon. So Travis is going to talk about some cool system and feature work that's coming, and then Matt's going to come up here and dive into some cool gameplay changes that we have coming shortly as well.
Mientras este señor va charlando, hemos visto que en el vídeo de presentación del inicio de la Blizzcon nos han enseñado dos personajes nuevos, Hanzo y Alex Traza, con lo que espero que aquí expliquen más cosas sobre los dos héroes y a lo mejor a ver si nos enseñan algún nuevo mapa o algún nuevo modo de juego.
The biggest one, of course, was our Heroes 2.0 release that came out earlier this year. This release, brought our first major Overwatch theme drop, a ton of awesome new content, and some great changes to our out-of-game progression and reward systems. And the end result of this release was really the single biggest moment in Heroes history. We had our highest player engagement numbers of all time, and that actually includes the original launch of the game. So it's just been an awesome, awesome release for us. And since that time, we've been riding that wave with more releases and more content and more
Recordamos
updates.
que durante este año, desde la BlizzCon 10 a la BlizzCon 11, que es esta la del 2017, han sacado 15 personajes nuevos y seguirán sacando personajes.
And so, the biggest being payloads, of course. In Heroes of the Storm, we're always trying to push ourselves. We're always trying out new things. We want to experiment. We want new things for the game, the genre, and ourselves. And so, in the case of Hanamura, some of those ideas didn't work out exactly how we wanted. And thanks to the awesome feedback from you guys, we actually took Hanamura back in the shop, and we're working on it. We're actually going to bring it back in the future bigger and better.
Van a cambiar un poco el mapa de Hanamura, que parece que no les ha funcionado tal como ellos pensaban.
This was our second Overwatch battleground, and while we've had player-controlled vehicles on other maps, this was our first opportunity to bring a two-player vehicle to the game. So, for those of you who are Cho'Gall fans, you can get some of that two-player action regardless what heroes you're playing. And then also, because we're insane, we threw conveyor belts all over the capture points just for some ridiculous team fights as well. But we're also loving that battleground.
Este no lo he jugado, el de Volskaya. Hace tiempo que no entro al juego, con lo que tendré que probarlo.
That is double the 7 that we originally launched with. So a lot of cool battlegrounds in the game now. Beyond the battlegrounds, we've also added a crazy number of new heroes this year. 15 new heroes to be exact. And if we just kind of take a quick look back here, we brought Zul'jin, Valera, Lucio, Probius, who you might have seen kind of roaming around the show floor here, Cassia, Genji, everyone's favorite highly mobile cyber ninja, I'm sure, unless you're a backline squishy, maybe not so favorite, but we have Diva, Malthael, who I love, Stukov, a really cool StarCraft support, unique healing mechanic and some cool heroics, Garrosh, Kel'Thuzad, our most requested hero ever. And more recently, we brought Ana to the game and Junkrat. And as you guys have seen this morning, we just announced that before the end of the year, we'll be bringing Alex Traza and Hanzo to the game. So, that's a lot of heroes.
Un montón de héroes, sí. Todo lo que han ido añadiendo y la mayoría de Overwatch. Y claro, que es el juego más nuevo que tienen. Y todavía faltan un montón. Aunque no creo que lleguen a ponerlos todos.
We also went back and reworked a bunch of existing heroes. In fact, we did 16 hero reworks this year so far. And here's a quick class photo of these ones. So,
Vale, y estos que salen ahora en pantalla son los que han tenido, los que han tocado de personajes antiguos que han ido mejorando.
Also look at talent diversity and balance issues as well. But we really enjoy going back and like looking at these heroes because there's heroes that we can kind of bring back into the meta by doing this. And this doesn't include, these 16 hero reworks actually don't include all of the balance updates we're doing as well. In fact, we touched 59 different heroes this year with balance updates. These are just number tweaks, things to make the game fun, fair, and balanced. So, a lot of changes across this year, and all of it has been done in collaboration with you guys. Your feedback that we get is invaluable towards developing this game, so I really want to thank you guys. So give yourselves all a round of applause for all your fantastic feedback.
Dice que esto no lo podrían haber hecho sin la ayuda de los fans, que son los que realmente van pidiendo los cambios, van diciendo que esto no está bien y dan sugerencias de cómo podrían mejorar los personajes. Mejorar o hacer que volviesen a ser jugados, porque hay algún personaje que no los tocaba nadie ni con un palo.
We might have done several reworks, 4 reworks in the case of Kel'Thuzad. We might have a bunch of balance updates that come along with it, an event with, a whole bunch of awesome new skins, and then sometimes we might even throw a new battleground into the mix. So, on the one hand, this can be really exciting because a bunch of cool stuff is coming to the game all at once, but we've also seen a couple issues with this approach. First off, we feel like not all of the content we release has a moment to shine. So, hero reworks, battlegrounds, other updates are often overshadowed by a brand new hero. Secondly, we also feel that by dropping a ton of gameplay changes at the same time, we've seen that we can create some instability in the meta as well. And of course, this can cause some disruption for the game.
Según parece, van a cambiar la forma en la que van sacando el contenido, porque dicen que a lo mejor en un parche iban metiendo eso, varios mejoras a personajes, un personaje nuevo, a lo mejor un Battleground, una pantalla nueva, skins o cualquier cosa. Y que claro, pues que la mayoría de contenido quedaba eclipsado si salía un héroe nuevo, con lo que para que no quede así, parece que van a espaciar un poquito los... Vale, a lo mejor tenemos novedades semanales o quincenales o algo así. Y en cada parchecito que vayan haciendo nos irán poniendo una cosa para que el meta vaya cambiando poco a poco, pero de forma constante.
Before getting into that, though, I've got some interesting statistics I wanted to show coming out of the Heroes 2.0 launch that I thought people might
Desde el
find
lanzamiento de Heroes 2.0 nos van a mostrar las estadísticas.
We added the ability for players to craft items. Not only is that a cool feature to have, it's given us some great insight into the type of items players really enjoy. So I brought some of that here for you. There's 2 different ways to look at this data. In first one I've got here is the top 5 items in terms of just the sheer raw number of items created. So the number 1 most created item since Heroes 2.0 was the Diva Announcer. Yeah, everybody loved that Diva Announcer. Number 2 is the Neon Dragon Genji skin. Number 3 was the Crimson Lionheart Varian skin. Number 4 is that Midnight Arcanist Jaina skin. And the 5th one is the Steel Dragon Genji skin. Now this doesn't account for the value of the items, so it tends to skew a little bit towards the lower cost items. If you look at the same stats,
dentro del juego tú puedes comprar diferentes skins, diferentes... El announcer, ¿vale? Es comentaristas, ¿vale? Tú puedes comprar cosas. Y estas 5 eran las que más se habían crafteado.
And then speaking to how popular our announcers have been, the 4th is the Abathur Announcer, and then Brightwing Announcer for number 5.
Y esto es lo que hay desde que sacaron la 2.0. Lo anterior era de antes de la 2.0. Esto está bien porque te permite eso, personalizarte un poquito tu personaje, tu partida y tus cosas sin que afecte a los demás. El comentarista solo lo escucharás tú, no lo escucharán los demás jugadores.
Their health and mana, their regen rates, their attack damage, their attack speed, their attack range, their armor, including breakdowns for physical and spell armor, as well as their spell power and movement speed. It's all really cool information, but be careful about studying it too much in a team fight, or your own stats are probably going to suffer. Next up, heroes in hiding. We're adding UI indicators for which heroes are inside of other things, vehicles, objects, abilities, that kind of thing. Nice little quality of life improvement. I got some examples for you here. So here we've got, you can see it here above the Dragon Knight's head, Nubrak inside of the Dragon Knight. Another example, Rhaegar in a cocoon. Here we have Azmodan being gorged by stitches, which shouldn't really be physically possible, but there it is. And then a couple heroes stuck in a maw. Again, these are just some nice quality of life improvements. Both of these are
Vale, estos son mejoras para que podamos ver qué personajes están ocultos o metidos dentro de algo, ¿vale?
We're gonna be, yeah, I'm excited about this one too. We're gonna be integrating Blizzard voice directly into the game client. So I'm sure as many of you recognize, effective communication can often be the difference between winning or losing a game of Heroes. And many players already use their own voice chat solutions to help with that, including Blizzard Voice. We want to make it as easy as possible for everybody to do this. So we're going to add 2 different voice chat channels to the game, one for your party and one for your team. When you join a party, you'll be automatically added to that party's voice chat channel. The team, though, is opt-in.
Bien, igual que en el Overwatch, si van a poner el chat de voz integrado dentro del juego, con canales tanto para tu equipo como para tu
We're adding indicators in the upper right corner of who's speaking. So when somebody's using voice chat, you can tell who's trying to communicate with you. You can see that up there.
Y en la esquina pondrá quién está hablando. Se notará, se verá en el icono.
Volume, mute them, and switch between party and team chat if you happen to be in both at the same time. Now, we've been playing with this internally for a little while now, and it's been fantastic just to have it for that ease of use. And this is actually available on the show floor right now, so you can check it out. And again, this will be coming to live servers over the next few months.
Vale, 2 chats, uno para el grupo y otro para el equipo. Grupo es que el grupo de tus colegas y equipo son los 5 jugadores.
Okay, getting on to the big one. This is the item I'm most excited to talk about, performance-based matchmaking. So, yeah.
Y muy bien, van a cambiar el matchmaking para que sea para que equipe a jugadores de la misma habilidad en vez de por rango o por puntuación. Si eres manco, te emparejarán con mancos.
And kind of explain how the existing system does its thing. So, at its core, the matchmaker is just trying to put players of similar skill together in games so that everybody has the best gameplay experience. To do that, every player is given a matchmaking rating, sometimes just referred to as MMR, which is just an indication of what the system thinks the player's skill is. The matchmaker then uses that when putting people together in matches, so the more accurate that MMR is as a reflection of their skill, the better the end results will be. Now, the team-based nature of Heroes of the Storm can make it challenging to figure out what a player's contribution is in an individual game, since there's only one part of the 5-man team that was in the match. Heroes uses a fairly standard approach to this just based on wins and losses. When you win a game, your MMR goes up. When you lose, it goes down. There's a bunch of other factors that come into play, including things like the skill of the opposing team, but that's the basic gist of it. Now, the system works since, all other things being equal, if a player is performing beyond the expectations of their current MMR, they're going to win more games than they lose over the long run. Their MMR is going to go up to the point where it's an actual indication of their skill. But unless that difference is pretty substantial, it can take a large number of games before that happens. So we've been working on ways to improve that. Now, over the last year or so, we've added a lot of data hooks to the game that can get at an individual's performance in the game. You've seen pieces of it being used.
Dice que claro que en un juego así de equipo es difícil medir lo que has hecho tú en una partida dependiendo de lo que hayan hecho los demás y que la mayoría de casos se resume en si has ganado partida o si has perdido partida. Y aquí hay cosas que están intentando hacer para poder mejorar el matchmaking. Vale, tanto
And it's not always what you think. I've got a couple examples here I want to show you. The first one of these is just a baseline. It's kind of Illidan. So Illidan works like you expect in this system. A good Illidan player does a lot of damage. He soaks a lot of experience. Doesn't die very often. And it takes a lot of mercenary camps. Now, Illidan has a relatively high skill cap, so in these statistics, the difference between a highly skilled Illidan and an average one is substantial. Now, a different example, though, is Kerrigan. Those same stats, damage, experience soaking, and deaths, a highly skilled Kerrigan really isn't that different from a more average Kerrigan. Instead, when it comes to Kerrigan, what really sets her apart is their effectiveness with her crowd control. Now, Kerrigan is still being measured on all the same stats as Illidan. They're just weighted differently to reflect how important they are for Kerrigan. Now, again, these are just a couple of simple examples for the system, but the point is that the matchmaker can use all this information, all this knowledge it has, and then it can look at how an individual performs, and it can measure that and use that to adjust their MMR at the end of a match. So you're still only going to gain MMR on a win and losing on a loss, but if you're performing as an individual beyond the expectations for your current skill level, you're going to gain more MMR on a win, lose less on a loss, and you'll much more quickly arrive at an MMR that's an actual indication of your skill. And the opposite is true if you're underperforming. One of the other cool things about this system is it's fully dynamic. So it's continually updating its system as hero balance changes, as the meta shifts, as players find creative new ways to use heroes. The system is updating to take that into account. Now, we've actually been running this on the live servers for a little while now in parallel with the existing matchmaker. The matchmaker hasn't been using these ratings, but it's running there and measuring things so we can see how it works. The data that comes out of this is really technical, and it would be hard to show off in a venue like this, but we did find an example that kind of differentiates and shows the differences in the system. That's what I have here. We don't condone this behavior, but when a highly skilled player takes control of another player's account, it was a great example for the system. It was a good way for it to kind of look in and do things. And that's what this graph is showing. This was a Bronze 5 account that a Master tier player took control of and ran it all the way back up to Master. This graph is showing their MMR in the old system, which is the dashed lines, and then their MMR in the new system, the solid lines, if we had been applying performance-based metrics to that. Now, in the case we're measuring here, the player took control of this account around game 40. Again, they played this all the way back up to Master tier, and the graph stops at that point, at game 251. Now, if we've been applying performance metrics to this and adjusting their MMR based on how well they're doing in those games,
aquí está comparando los sistemas que tenían viejos de matchmaking con los nuevos, y se ve con el nuevo sistema se nota más cuando un jugador bueno sube de rango y que cuenta como el programa cuenta como las 40 primeras partidas más o menos como partidas de ejemplo de cómo funcionas para luego ponerte en el rango en el que correspondas del matchmaking.
We actually already used it to confirm reports of players intentionally feeding, for example, to help take action on those accounts. And we want to automate this in the future so that we can much more quickly take those actions. Yeah. There's a lot of potential here. Which leads me to the big question I'm sure everybody's asking, which is when can we actually get this thing? Because it's pretty cool. And I got good news on that front. We're looking to roll it out with the start of the next ranked season in mid-December. So, yeah, it's coming soon.
La nueva temporada de Ranked empezará a mediados de diciembre y se supone que esto ya estará activo para entonces. Vale, si no me equivoco, esto es como en el Overwatch, que para poder entrar en Ranked tienes que llegar a jugar X partidas para ver de clasificatorio para poder ver dónde vas. ¿En qué rango te toca?
Hey everyone, I'm Matthew. I'm the lead live designer on Heroes of the Storm. So as Alan and Travis talked about, we add a ton of new content to this game all the time. New heroes, battlegrounds, reworks. So really the game is just always constantly evolving. Now, over the last several months, a bunch of the development team has been working on some
nos va a explicar un poco de lo que va a venir durante el año 2018.
These are core changes
y
to how
gameplay
you'll play in every single
es
opening
un poquito de cómo van a cambiar el juego.
Camera changes, our updates to stealth, our laning changes.
Vale.
There's a lot to cover, so we're going to dive right in. Let's talk about the camera first.
Sí, van a cambiar el modo de cámara del juego.
The camera can be a little bit claustrophobic in those larger scale team fights. When you get all 10 players fighting over a single objective, you can't always see all the players on the screen at a time. And now over time, of course, too, we've added characters like Chromie, who has really long range, Genji, Medivh, who have really high mobility. And so in a lot of ways, the camera wasn't designed with these kind of characters in mind. So we wanted to evaluate our camera height, see if we could pull this out a little bit, provide our players with a better experience. This is something we've gotten feedback on from our community for quite a while now. So how much we pull up the camera is a bit of a balance between performance and visibility. Our goal is to improve visibility, right? We want to make it so you can better
el objetivo que tienen ellos es que nosotros podamos ver todo lo que pasa durante una pelea dentro del juego. Y están experimentando con diferentes alturas para que se vea lo que se pueda ver en pantalla a la vez. Esta es la cámara modelo antiguo, ¿vale? Lo que hay ahora. Vale, y lo van a hacer en vídeo para que veamos la diferencia entre la cámara vieja y la cámara nueva, que es lo que han estado experimentando.
So this is what the new camera looks like, and now you can see Chromie is actually visible off to the side. Stitches can use that information, set up that hook for his team, get that kill.
Muy bien, muy bien.
So overall, this new camera will let you better read team fights, better make better strategies as a result.
Claro, desde el punto de vista que lo veíamos al principio no se veía a Chromie, pero Chromie sí veía a los demás jugadores y podía seguir atacando.
And when we're looking at stealth heroes from a balance and a design perspective, there are some areas we want to improve. These are typically really powerful characters in quick match play. At the same time, they get a little bit weaker as we move up into higher level Hero League and competitive play. And then we rarely see some of these characters in esports. So,
vale, parece que van a cambiar el sigilo, vale, la invisibilidad, porque son personajes poderosos, vale, pero que cuanto más alto es el nivel del juego, menos se ven, porque los jugadores expertos saben cómo lidiar con ellos y quieren cambiarlo para que se puedan ver en todos los niveles.
And what some of you might be able to see is there are several stealth heroes moving around just below Jaina right now on that cobblestone path. These are really challenging to see. It's hard to spot this. And ultimately, this ends up being an eye test. If you can spot these stealth heroes quickly, if you can communicate this information to your team effectively, maybe over voice chat, then the power that stealth brings is reduced.
Aquí nos contaba que el ejemplo de que se veía a Jaina ahí en medio de la pantalla y por debajo se veía borroso como pasaban varios personajes en sigilo. Y que
So this is the new stealth visual. We have the old one on the left, the new one on the right. It's a lot easier to see. You can even clearly see the silhouette of the stealth characters. Now if you're paying close attention, you might see that these stealth characters are actually disappearing when they stop moving. This is something that's not playable here at Blizzcon. It's something we're testing out at the office.
Vale, esto lo están probando todavía, ¿vale? Para que se vea la silueta de los personajes mientras se van moviendo en sigilo, lo que hace es que sean menos efectivos porque son más fáciles de ver, pero es más jugable para todos. Con lo que un jugador que juega con un personaje con sigilo tiene que saberse mover bien y no pasar cerca de los demás personajes, porque te van a ver. Vale, pero veis, según dice, siguen siendo personajes que no se van a ver en el minimapa y que no les puedes hacer objetivo, pero sí les puedes afectar con ataques de área.
Now, by updating these stealth visuals, we can re-look at our stealth heroes and kind of do some hero updates to each of the characters, give them some new tools and tricks to play with.
Vale, y como será más difícil jugar con ellos, porque será más fácil verlos, van a estudiar los personajes de sigilo uno por uno para mejorarles, darles alguna habilidad extra o alguna cosita. Vale, y aquí por ejemplo vemos a la fantasmita Nova. a la que le van a dar más velocidad mientras esté en sigilo y una habilidad nueva para hacer sigilo de forma instantánea. No está nada mal, y encima ataca a bastante distancia, con lo que si ya era un personaje que estaba muy bien, de verdad.
Another change we're doing with Nova is we're reducing her base snipe damage, but then giving her the Snipe Master talent baseline. So if you're consistently landing a lot
Hace
of
menos
snipes,
daño
what this will mean
con
is
el
you can
rifle de
actually bring
francotirador,
more total damage to your team
pero lo
fight
convierte
through
en
high
una habilidad
accuracy.
básica, con lo que no tendrás que activarla.
Now, if you want to learn more about the stealth changes, please
Y
come to the Hero
explicarán
Deep
más en
Dive panel
otra,
tomorrow. It's on the same stage at 1 p.m. Alex Nyman,
en
one of our
otra,
live
en otro
designers,
panel.
will be going into more details about all of these changes, and he'll also be talking about Valera, Zeratul, and Samuro, who are also receiving updates. All right, moving on to lane updates.
Lane
So why are
updates.
we
Estas
looking
son
at
mejoras
laning?
en,
And the reason we're looking
en
at
los
laning is
mapas,
this is
en
kind
los
of the
caminos.
beginning part of a game, and this is a great opportunity for players to have some of those smaller scale 1v1 and 2v2 skirmishes. It gives you some opportunities to outplay your opponent, show off your individual skill. However, right now, our laning phase typically ends really quickly. When that first tribute on Cursed Hollow spawns, maybe a minute into the match, all players are kind of pulled out of the lane. On top of that, the laning phase doesn't carry a lot of weight throughout the game. The teamfight phase is still king, so even if you do outplay your opponent in lane, it doesn't necessarily translate to the rest of the match. So we wanted to kind of revisit our laning experience and see what updates we could do to make this more interesting. We looked at a lot of different things. First up, let's talk about ammunition on towers. So how tower ammunition works currently is, essentially towers have a limited number of shots, and then after that they regenerate ammunition extremely slowly. How this ends up playing out for the most part is players will quickly defeat the enemy minion wave, and then they can play safe. They can back off to their own tower, their own gate, and let their minion wave push into the enemy towers and drain ammunition.
Vale.
We see this commonly
Están
on
contando que
Battlegrounds
están
where
estudiando
higher skill groups of players will roam around
cómo
as a group
funcionan
of
las
4,
torres y su
and they'll quickly
munición,
just bounce between multiple
que
lanes,
actualmente
quickly defeating the
tienen
minions and then
una
moving on.
munición
And they're
limitada,
actually winning the lanes by doing
que cuando
that
se
because they're
agota se
draining the tower
recarga
damage.
muy lentamente,
So we
con
wanted
lo
to
que hay
revisit
muchos
this and
jugadores
see,
que
is
aprovechan
there a change
para
we can make so that
atacar
we can
solo
encourage
cuando
players to
vas
play
con
a little bit
esbirros,
more offensively, actually
y
attack
que
those
cuando
towers.
se
And we
les
did a
acaba
number
la
of different
munición,
tests.
atacan a lo
What we're
bruto,
showing you guys here today is
y o si
towers
se
are
le
going to have
acaban los
infinite ammunition.
minions,
So
se
basically,
apartan
you
hasta
can't
que
drain
lleguen
tower
nuevos.
ammunition anymore.
Y ahora
What
parece
this
que
is
las
going to encourage
torres
players
van
to
a
do now
tener
is
munición
you're actually going to
infinita
want
para
to
que no
push up
pueda
that
pasar
minion
esto.
wave because you're going to want to get meaningful tower damage done. We've done some balance updates as a result of this. So minions have a little bit more health, a little bit more damage. So if you push with your minion wave, they're going to be even more meaningful at dealing damage to that tower.
Y lo que van a
while
hacer
we were looking
también
at
será
towers,
darle
we
más
also
fuerza a los
want to look at
minions
the different towers and fortifications
para
and
que
see
cuente
how
más
they're
cuando
performing.
vas
Are
con
there
ellos
changes
a
we wanna
atacar
make here?
a una torrecita.
This is a typical fortification layout on Dragonshire. And when we were looking at all these different towers, we want to focus on this one in particular. We call these the standalone towers. These are at the back. And we found that these are actually not that meaningful for the most part. A lot of the time when they actually do come into play, when they actually start attacking, the other towers have already been destroyed. Maybe even the fort and keep have already been destroyed. And they can actually block defenders' movement. So if you're a defender trying to protect this location, enemies can really predict your movement a lot easier, land skill shots on you as you're trying to move through these locations. So we decided to cut these towers. If you've played our newest battleground, Volskaya Foundry, that battleground actually doesn't have these standalone towers on it. And we've been continuing to test this for a few months now.
Pues dice que estas torres, las torres solitarias que hay al lado de una fortaleza, son normalmente bastante inútiles porque atacan desde lejos, atacan poco, son predecibles si intentas defenderlas por donde puedes ir, con lo que en la mayoría de mapas las van a quitar. Solo se quedarán las dos que hay en la puerta y luego la fortaleza.
So we wanted to revisit this, see if there's some other changes we could make. And instead of adding the standalone towers back, we're actually adding true sight to our forts and keeps. So True Sight is a mechanic that currently exists on the core, and what it does is essentially it reveals any enemy stealth heroes who get within its attack range. So now your forts and keeps are also going to have True Sight. So if the addition
Vale,
of True
las torres y
Sight
las
and unlimited tower
fortalezas
ammunition, you
van a
should feel
tener
quite
esto
a
que
bit
se llama
safer
True
when
Sight,
trying to
que es
defend one of
que
these,
cualquier enemigo que entre en su
fortification
rango
locations.
perderá la invisibilidad.
All right, Regeneration Globes. So this is a really kind of interesting part of the laning phase. We like a lot of things that Regeneration Globes do. They encourage you to think about your positioning, your enemy's positioning. You want to think about even how you fight the minion wave and make sure that you're getting these Regeneration Globes. So these things are doing a lot of good, awesome stuff for us, and we want to see if we could make some changes, get even more out of them. So currently, Regeneration Globes last for 6 seconds in an allied state, and then they time out. We tried a bunch of different changes, bunch of different iteration on this, and the one we're showing you guys here is instead, allied globes are going to last for 4 seconds, and then they will change into a neutral state for another 4 seconds.
Esto es grande, esto es grande.
Either team can pick them up.
Vale, cuando los globos de vida que sueltan los minions cuando los vas matando, normalmente duran solo 6 segundos, ¿vale? Solo son para tu equipo y luego desaparecen, ¿no? Pues ahora lo van a cambiar y aparte de esos 6 segundos, luego cambiarán y estarán 4 segundos de forma neutral, con lo que los podrá coger cualquiera de los dos equipos. Y eso cambia un poco la forma de jugar.
And battlegrounds like Dragonshire, Braxis Holdout, or Tomb of the Spider Queen, we feel these battlegrounds really enhance that laning experience. Essentially, the battleground mechanic is part of the lane. So if you're on Dragonshire and you're the top lane and you're outplaying your opponent, you're actually also helping your team to secure that map event in the top, helping your team potentially get that Dragon Knight. Of course, we have a number of other battlegrounds that quickly pull you out of lane. So we have battlegrounds like Sky Temple, Cursed Hollow, Infernal Shrines, and essentially when the first tribute on Cursed Hollow spawns, that's kind of a call to action for all players to kind of lead the lane.
Quieren llevar todo lo que va siendo los combates a los caminos.
We don't want to change this too much. We wanted to evaluate how quickly we're pulling players out of lanes.
Y hay mapas que hacen que
so we're going to push back some of those battleground objectives a little bit to give you more
pelees en las
time
líneas y mientras peleas en las líneas te estás asegurando conseguir objetivos. Y hay otros mapas que lo que hacen es apartarte de las líneas para ir a buscar algún objeto, alguna cosita. Y estos mapas van a ser retocados, al menos estudiarán cómo retocarlos para mejorarlos.
Things like when the first map mechanic appears on the battleground, when does the next one appear, what's the delay
y que
we want to simplify that, so players have
las
to
mecánicas de cada mapa harán que sean más rápidas también.
There are essentially 2 rule sets you'll need to learn. Our early battlegrounds, the first map mechanic will spawn in at 1:30 seconds, and some of those later battlegrounds that we want to push back a little bit to give players more time in the lane, those are going to spawn in at 3 minutes. We also want to provide the information a little bit
habrán cosas que pasarán cada minuto y medio y hay cosas que pasarán cada 3 minutos, eventos dentro de cada mapa. Por ejemplo, el que es el que se abre en la cueva y tienes que bajar a la mina, pues eso supongo que será cada 3 minutos, pero luego pasará algo cada minuto y medio en la parte de arriba.
You might actually see where that next shrine is going to be well before that 30-second warning. This will allow players to think about when they should be taking a mercenary camp, which lane they should be pushing, what their strong lane should be. Just provide players with more information.
Y todo esto son cosas que nos irán diciendo los comentaristas.
We don't want there to always be a set pattern that tributes spawn in on Cursed Hollow, for example. We want there to be some variation, but as long as we can provide that information early to players, they'll be able to better make strategies around that information. The goal with all of these changes is to not increase game length. So we have a lot of different tuning knobs to keep our game length right around 20 minutes, which we think is an awesome experience. You know, obviously we could make
todos los cambios estos que están haciendo intentarán que no alarguen más las partidas. Que lo habitual que una partida dure es solo unos 20 minutos y que a ellos les parece el tiempo correcto.
So last thing I want to talk about is our mercenary camps. So especially with
Ahora
us
mercenarios.
making a bunch of changes, making laning more interesting, we wanted to revisit the mercenaries and to see if there are changes we can make here to add more strategy to each individual camp. Currently, some of our mercenaries may be on, say, knights, for example. They kind of act as tower fodder. Their job is to push down a lane, soak up a bunch of tower ammunition. Well, with unlimited tower ammunition, we definitely wanted to revisit these, make sure they're providing some unique strategies. So for our knight camp, the knight wizard is going to emit a spell armor aura. So if you're knight camp, all nearby allies, heroes, even other minions and mercenaries are actually going to have a bunch of spell armor. This will make it a lot harder
Los campos de caballeros ahora tendrán también un mago que dará armadura para que compensar el que las torres tengan balas infinitas.
With every single basic attack, and this will stack a few times. So again, if you're fighting in a lane and the enemy has some hellbats with them, you're gonna have to be really careful
cada
about how
mapa,
you engage this
cada
lane.
clase
Maybe
de
you're gonna wanna take
mercenarios
out those
tendrá
hellbats early.
una utilidad diferente también.
For Siege Giants, we actually really liked how Siege Giants perform for the most part. They require a response from the enemy team, but we still wanted to look at them and see if there are changes or updates we could do to make Siege Giants better. Now, some of you might not know that you can actually dodge Siege Giant attacks in the lane. We just don't telegraph this very well. We don't do a good job of it. So we're going to better communicate this, make it more visually obvious that you can dodge their attacks.
Vale, los gigantes de asedio harán un pequeño aviso antes de atacar para que la gente que juegue bien pueda esquivar sus ataques antes de que les caiga la roca en la cabeza.
We want to make sure that they're all performing well across all stages of a game. So we have a few minutes left. I'm going to talk quickly about timeline, and then after that we'll probably have about 5 or 6 minutes for questions.
Vale, esto supongo que es que ahora van a decir todo lo que irán sacando de novedades en tiempo.
We had a community summit where we invited out quite a few different professional players, streamers, shoutcasters, and they came and checked out a lot of this content and gave us feedback on it so we can continue iterating. Of course, we're here at Blizzcon. Everything I just talked about is playable here.
El Community Summit es que en octubre tuvieron una reunión con varios jugadores.
Near end of November, we'll be moving to an extended 3-week PTR that will roll into December as well. Everyone in our community will be able to play all of this on the PTR and let us know your feedback, let us know what you think. None of this is set in stone. We want to get your feedback. We want to make
3 semanas en el reino público de pruebas y a principios de diciembre habrá la nueva temporada de Ranked. Lo que no sé es cuánto durará la próxima temporada de Ranked.
All right, that's everything we have for you guys today. Thank you.
Ah, pues no han hablado de los nuevos héroes, ni del mapa nuevo, ni nada. Me parece raro. Han hablado solo de mecánicas y ya está. Y ahora pues 5 minutitos o así de preguntas y respuestas. Vamos a ver.
Are you considering moving DuoQ back to Hero League? In that DuoQ is currently in Team League with 2s and 3s, but is it ever possible for Duo League to be back with Solo Queue?
So we're not currently. Ever is a really long time. We're always looking to evaluate these things. But right now, we like the solo queue for Hero League, and our efforts are on making Team League a better experience overall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Vale, la Liga de Héroes.
So,
Por ahora solo se puede entrar en equipo y os he preguntado si se podría entrar solo. Y lo están estudiando.
But this year I'm going to ask you another question. Hypothetically, if McCree were to join Heroes of the Storm, would you remove his cigar? And if you don't, will you give Tychus back his cigar?
We give Tychus McCree's cigar? Yes, exactly. We will give Tychus McCree's cigar.
All right, thank you.
Vale, pregunta chorra. Si meten a Macri en el juego, si le quitan el cigarro que va fumando siempre o se lo dan a Taikus, porque se lo han quitado.
And I can't see them at all because they come out as tiny little specks on the 4K screen. Is it possible to get text scaling added to the chat window?
Yeah, it's a known issue and something we'd like to correct.
Thank you.
Esto no lo he entendido.
I had a question that with the game getting as big as it is and with the introduction of voice chat in 2018, if you guys are planning on anything to promote positivity within the community, say personal commendations beyond just an MVP screen where you just click an upvote and then get out of the game.
Yeah, it's
Bien,
something
este
that we've
preguntaba
been
que si
pursuing for a little while
añadiendo
now. We're exploring different ways of doing that.
el chat de
You know,
voz
we did add the MVP
añadirían
screen
algo
where you can
más
upvote people,
para
but I agree that there's probably more opportunities where we can make a more meaningful system to
para
really
hacer que
call
la
out those players that did an
gente
awesome job in the game or
no
promoting
se
good,
trate
fun,
mal entre
you know,
ellos, que
experiences
haya
within the
más
game. So
compañerismo
it's something we're looking at. We don't have anything
y
specific
que
right
lo
now,
están
but
mirando.
absolutely.
Que no sea solo la pantalla de final de partida como en el Overwatch, en el que votas al jugador que te haya caído bien o que lo haya hecho mejor y ya está.
I had a question concerning interactive environment effects like the conveyor belt in Foundry. As a Chromie main who likes to run triple time trap, you can imagine how excited I was when I started lining them up and they're just freezing people all around. Is that a feature you guys are thinking of expanding in new maps as far as passive map events that aren't tied to the game objectives?
I'll say, so we have a Battleground team that's always looking to push the boundaries within our Battleground experience, and John DeShazer, our lead Battleground designer, I think has been wanting to add conveyor belts for quite some time now, and it just happened to make a lot of sense on Volskaya Foundry. So I'm sure those guys are also looking for new ways and new opportunities to promote awesome Battleground design.
Cool, thank you.
I'll just add that we're always trying out new things. We always want to try crazy ideas and see where it goes. So we'll
Vale,
see what
este
happens.
preguntaba por cosas que no afecten nada dentro del juego, pero que se vean dentro de la pantalla.
In regards to your removing of the towers, have you also considered about the repositioning of the healing fountains so that they're not exposed?
The Battleground team has been looking at the layout of the different structures, and they have made some changes. I don't know if they've totally updated all of the healing well locations, but that is feedback we've heard before of players who specifically
este
go into
preguntaba si quitando las torres solitarias estas que habían detrás de las fortalezas iban a mover las fuentes de curación, y se ve que es algo que han estado estudiando y que en algunos mapas sí que se han tocado.
Hi guys, love your game. I just had a question about quick match team comps, where sometimes you get like an actual team comp, 1 tank, 3 damage, 1 healer, and sometimes like me, you get 3 tanks, 1 damage, 1 healer. So I was just wondering if there was any plans to address team comp, like quick match team comps, like how you have Dungeon Finder and WoW. So do you have any comments about that?
I'll take it or so.
You want me to?
Yeah. So the quick match is an interesting beast for us. It's meant to be a little bit of the Wild West, and the big things that are important to us for quick match is that players can play the hero they want.
Partida rápida se ve que hay gente que lo ideal es que haya un tanque o uno o dos curadores y 1 o 2 DPS, y que hay gente que esto pues le da igual, y que a lo mejor te encuentras un equipo, como decía este chico, con 3 tanques, un curador, un DPS, y que eso no es óptimo para la partida. Y que ellos lo van mirando, pero que el quick match es una cosa que es así más genérica, y que la gente hace lo que le da la gana.
And if you do truly want like that perfect team comp, I'd suggest unranked draft or even ranked modes as well.
Okay, thank you.
That was the last question.
Y última pregunta.
It has been said.
Bien.
Thank you guys very much.
Yes, thank you. Great seeing you all.
Y hasta aquí este panel, este vídeo. Me faltan 2 por hacer, que son el de Diablo y StarCraft. que haré en breve. Así que ya sabéis, Mailman Grumpy de los Crying Grumpies. Podéis seguirnos en nuestro blog. Hasta el próximo vídeo.